Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the Waterside Press. It's a book which is entitled Servant of the Crown. This book here, I'll show it to you in a moment. I attended a press release for this book and I found it very interesting to see and meet the author and listen to what was being said. I'll show you the book first of all. It's a white cover. And you can see the front. It's called Servant of the Crown, and it's got a subtitle, A Civil Servant's Story of Criminal Justice and Public Service Reform. It's been written by David Faulkner, and there's a foreword by Sir John Chilcot. That's the front, the side and the back. There's an index at the back, which is quite useful. It's a paperback, runs to just over 200 pages. And what you've got in it is, there's the front. I'll just show you the book itself. You've got a whole series of contents. You've got a number of chapters looking specifically at particular areas of this guy's activities. There we go, in the Home Office as a senior civil servant. There are two appendices as well, which are useful articles by the author. Then some quotes, and then you go into the book itself. There are some footnotes at the bottom, which you can see. It's not paragraph numbered or anything, and it's just basic copy. And then, for instance, let's have a look. Prisons in crisis, the May report and so forth. And then you go all the way through with particular issues that he wants to talk about towards the Criminal Justice Act 1991. In other words, milestones that have taken place in the history of criminal justice and public service reform over the years. Now, my wife and I attended this press conference with Mr. Faulkner, and quite an array of very substantial senior civil servants, nearly all retired. It was chaired by Sir John Chilcot, and there was a question and answer session afterwards, which was most useful. We've given it a title, 5 Decades of Home Office History, a Delight to the Whitehall Watchers. And this is what we're saying. At the recent press conference to launch his excellent set of recollections, David Faulkner argued the case extremely well when setting out the proper relationship between policy and politics, and between civil servant and politician. A relationship of stability conducted throughout the decades he spans in this book, with 12 chapters, 2 appendices, and some splendidly shared memories of what has happened during those years. And that's what it is. It's an autobiography, if you like, of his working life. It's a dream of a book, in my view, because for the modern political historian, they'll find a lot in it, because we see so much blatant change occurring in the hitherto special relationship between the state and its servants in the important area of criminal justice and public service reform, which of course Parliament continues to muck up. Now, in the foreword, Sir John Chilcot, who actually chaired the press conference, describes Faulkner's book as rewarding on several levels, from its narrative of the key issues and developments in criminal justice to the riveting personal account of one deeply engaged in the underlying human troubles with which policy on crime and punishment throws up, and which the author has continually struggled with. And I think, bearing in mind what Sir John has said in his foreword, I've tried to simplify some of the language used. Many readers will understand exactly how Faulkner feels, for much of what he discloses in Servant of the Crown will be well known personally to them as well. Chilcot also mentions 2 points which are most notable features of Faulkner's career. He describes, quote, the colour and life which often shines through the book, with attributes to Jim Callaghan, whom Faulkner had a difficult working relationship, which is understandable for any civil servants who have ever run a private office, as I have. The second point is the, quote, marked continuity of the cast of characters engaged in criminal justice and penal policy from the 1960s to the 1990s. And I'm sure you'll be well aware of an array of names that are mentioned in this book. I'm not going to go into them now. And what a time it was. There were the shifts of circumstances, opinion, and even intellectual fashion when Faulkner gives what Chilcot describes as, quote, a positive impact by conserving understanding and intellectual capital in the field. In other words, without the contribution which David Faulkner has made to the criminal justice agenda over the decades, public policy making would have been even more variable than it has been, to use the words. And that is saying something, because of the massive upheavals in this area of politics and lawmaking in the last 50 years. Just have to think of the number of Home Secretaries who've had what I can only describe as grief in the portfolio. The final word, I think, is best left to the author, who says this is not a story of high drama, new revelations or biting criticisms. Instead, it's about people trying conscientiously to do their jobs in circumstances of complexity, uncertainty and compromise, to make things better, and to do so with some sense of purpose. And that clearly is what shines through here. For those reasons alone, this is a short book which all aspiring leading civil servants, the old high flyers, should read for its depth of knowledge, which Professor David Downes rightly says enriches our understanding. It does. We would expect more of these relatively forthright recollections to appear in the future, as the senior civil service become, hopefully, less marred in the privacy of what they do, or perhaps become more open about their respective policy roles in government as the backbone of the country's administrative processes, especially during electoral change, uncertainty or coalition, which is what we've been going through. So thank you for giving us a special snapshot on how the issues of the day were handled and the policies formed during your watch, to use that current trendy term. In other words, for your time as a senior civil servant. It is thoughtful and enlightening. Well, thank you very much for that. I'll just show you the book again. There it is. See it? White cover and in the back. It's a light book. It's a very easy read. In places it's a little ponderous in some places. That's just an example of that new technology. Developments, all sorts of points about the public-private sector issues. Roles about children, for instance, there. I found it a very interesting book. I must, of course, have been a civil servant and I'm a barrister at law, so I'm bound to have an interest in this. I've also been a politician, so I'm aware of the pressures that are on Home Office civil servants with that portfolio and the tremendous difficulties that any Home Secretary has in what is a challenging role and a very big department, of course. Thank you, David Faulkner. Thank you very much to Waterside Press. I should have mentioned they have a putting justice into words is a little slogan they now have. But thank you to all concerned for an excellent book. It's a good read. Bye-bye.